right, good evening, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. So, good evening and welcome to the Tuesday, November 18th, 2025 Board of Education meeting. We have all trustees present. We have our 4 student reps here tonight who are going to be updating us on the great things going on in their schools. So with that, could I ask everyone to please rise and we will recite the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, again, good evening and welcome. So our first item of agenda tonight is our recognition. Dr. Macheski, yes. I'll turn it over to you to honor our Wells Elementary School personnel tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Philippart. Appreciate that. It's my honor this evening to recognize Wass Elementary as a National Blue Ribbon for receiving the National Blue Ribbon Award. We're pleased to recognize Wass Elementary School this evening for their designation as a National Blue Ribbon School. This award honors them as being one of the very best schools in the United States. Unfortunately, the United States Department of Education discontinued the national program. Therefore, the state of Michigan took over recognizing and designating 2025 Blue Ribbon schools for exemplary high performance under the federal program. Wass was identified as one of 13 public schools in Michigan to be bestowed with this designation. Students and parents, school staff, and local communities deserve to be honored for the outstanding achievement by our Blue Ribbon schools, said Interim State Superintendent Dr. Sue Carnell. These schools serve as an example to others and, at the same time, are representative of the accomplishments and progress at schools around the state. MDE and the State Board of Education want to make sure these outstanding schools in our state get the recognition they deserve, said Board President Dr. Pamela Pugh. Wass was recognized by the Interim State Superintendent at a ceremony in Lansing on November 13th. Congratulations for this impressive designation.
I need my crew to stand with me. Thank you to Rich and the Board of Education for honoring the Wass community tonight. We are excited and grateful to be recognized for a second time as a Blue Ribbon school. Though this is only my second year at Wass, I can tell you from the moment I stepped inside our school, I felt something special. Our community thrives because our teachers and staff, our families, and our students consistently work together. While many of our accomplishments within the Blue Ribbon application focused on high academic achievement, I want to also highlight that our dedication to children is centered on humanity. Our core values are named and practiced daily in all areas within our school environment. It is because of our community's strong commitment to character education that our children are learning and growing, both academically and emotionally. Our mission is to make sure our Wass Wolves are good humans who are giving back to the community that is always there for them no matter what. Our theme at Wass this year is Better Together, and we are living into that in all aspects of our work. I want to again thank our amazing teachers, some of them are with you tonight, for all that they do and for seeing our children as gifts to our community. I am proud and blessed to work alongside such a wonderful group of educators every single day.
Kristen, we'd like to get a picture with you and your team.
They really love the group picture.
And Dr. Philippart, Miss Annie, if you'd like to jump in that picture.
All right. So we get the photo. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mrs. Crow, and to the team at Wass. We appreciate you giving up some time this evening to be here and allow the board and our administrative team to celebrate you and the exemplary work that you do on behalf of students in the Wass community. I want to also thank Chris Griefor, who attended the ceremony in Lansing on the district's behalf and just truly a remarkable achievement again for the WAS Wolves. So congratulations. Okay, next under recognition, it's my pleasure to ask Mrs. Montanti to the microphone on behalf of the communications team here in the Troy School District for some exciting news on some awards that were achieved.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Moteski.
A lot of
Thank you, Board
awards that were
Education.
achieved.
This evening, we'd like to recognize the Troy School District Communications Department. Could all the members of the department please come up? We are missing Mr. Burns this evening. So I am honored to share that the communications team received 17 National School and Public Relations NSPRA awards this year, and 5 Michigan School and Public Relations MSPRA awards. These awards are a true testament to the collaboration that can be seen in this department. I would personally like to thank Melissa Verdoon, Thomas Butcher, Adam Burns, and Allison Hendry. These awards would not be possible without their hard work and dedication to One Troy. The team was recognized with the awards in the following categories. National awards, 17. Awards of excellence, there were 6 of them. Financial publication, TSD Millage Renewal Guide. Marketing materials for an IA East postcard. TSD preschool and kindergarten information night booklet. Podcast, attending IAE, the best is yet to come. Special purpose publication, 2025 MLK Day of Service social media ad, and video series portraits. Awards of merit, excellence in writing, MLK program script. Infographic, Be Smart on gun safety. News release, Turtlewoods grant approved. Podcast, creativity, Rich Macheski's educational leadership. Video series, TSD alumni profiles. Video single, school flood creates unique opportunity for collaboration. Honorable mention, 5 awards. Magazine, One Troy Voice, fall and winter issues. Photo, alumni returns, a full circle moment. Video single, making connections and celebrating community. Middle school collaboration in the TSD. Authentic research with bug bacteria. And 5 Michigan awards. Awards of excellence, marketing materials, Athens High School profile, which is new this year. Awards of merit, video series, TSD alumni profiles. Podcast, Smith Construction Update. Photo, Athens Champion Powerlifting Team. Infographic, Leonard Elementary Schools. The team was recognized for the national awards in July at the NSPRA conference and will be recognized at the MSPRA conference in March for the Michigan awards. The Troy School District proudly celebrates the remarkable accomplishments of our communications department. The recent awards not only showcase their exceptional creativity and innovation, but they also reflect their unwavering dedication to sharing the inspiring stories and achievements that define our district. We are truly grateful for this talented, passionate team whose work continues to strengthen the connection between our schools and our communities that we serve. Thank you for your unwavering commitment to our world-class district. We couldn't do it without you.
Kidder, if we get a picture with your team?
Sure.
Dr. Philpar?
Very impressive.
Just keep going.
Yeah. Yeah, so we are going to keep going. Since we did not have a long recognition tonight, we won't take a break. However, anybody who, wants to scoot out and get on with your evening, you will not offend us, so please feel free to do so.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, and congratulations again. Do we have a public comment?
Just non-agenda.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just one.
Okay, so we will continue on in our agenda. Any additions and deletions, Dr. Macheski?
There are none this evening?
Okay, any public comment on agenda items?
We have one public comment on non-agenda items.
Okay, all right, so we will hold that. We have, I think, a fairly crisp meeting tonight. So we will move on with the approval of the general consent agenda. Tonight's agenda consists of the minutes of the October 7th, 2025 Board of Education workshop, minutes of the October 14th, 2025 Board of Education meeting, the September 2025 Treasurer's report, and a garage door purchase for Troy High School. May I have a resolution, please? Mr. Hopp?
Be it therefore resolved that the Troy Board of Education takes action to approve items A, B, C, and D of the consent agenda.
Support.
We have a resolution by Mr. Hopp, supported by Ms. Alish. Any discussion of these items? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Opposed, say no. Great, thank you. Motion carries. Any personnel tonight, Dr. Macheski?
There's none this evening.
All right, we will move on to curriculum, and tonight we will hear a presentation by our two assistant superintendents, Chris Griefor and Christine DiPilato, on our student achievement data. Yeah.
All right, it's up and running. Good evening.
Good
Thank you
evening.
for the opportunity to be here tonight to share a little bit about our student achievement report this year. We did have an opportunity during our board workshop to go in depth through this presentation with our board to answer quite a few questions. Our goal tonight is to be able to share it publicly. There have been some updates. We'll stop there and work through some of those slides. But hope to be able to share with you in total some reflections on our summative assessment for this year. So when we think about the purpose of tonight, it's really for us to focus again on our summative assessments, our state level tests that we give annually. This test allows us to think programmatically about our district and the progress of the programs that we have in place, our curricular programs specifically. It also allows us to look at how Troy might compare across the county and the state. And it allows us to look at how we do over time. So we'll look at a few measures of how we are performing over time. We do believe it's important at the beginning of this presentation annually to talk just a little bit about the different kinds of assessment that we provide in a school district. Our state summative assessments are given annually. They are moments in time or snapshots for us when we are thinking about our programs holistically as a district. They are not the kinds of data that we use when we are trying to support students or measure student growth over time. We look at our students and work with our students through more formative assessment measures, but collected here in this data set is, again, that summative measure. So we're going to kick it off with our state assessment, looking at proficiency in the M-STEP.
All right. Well, we are looking here, just to orient you a bit to the slide. So this is M-STEP, as Christine said, grades 3 through 7 ELA, all kind of in one combination is one way to look at them. This is sort of decoupled. We had that feedback from the board in previous years, so this is each grade level at a time. And you can see grades 3 through 7. In the orange, it is showing you the proficiency, and then in that hash mark is the proficiency rate of the prior year. So this is just a quick at-a-glance 2-year proficiency rates for ELA grades 3 through 7. So as you can see from the chart, we're looking at the grades 3 through 7 showing steady or improved progress in some cases from 2024 to 25. You see there where we're about in the mid to upper 60% range. This is just really illustrating our consistency over time. We talked specifically about the jump in third grade that we were excited to see, the 4.7% increase over time, and just highlighted a few of those areas for the board at the workshop. One of the key pieces here is really kind of highlights the strengths that we have in Tier 1 instruction and then areas that we have for improvement as well. Looking at this in mathematics, again, kind of that glance over our system in grades 3 through 7. Again, our third graders showed a pretty big jump, about 5% of an increase in this area. Most of our grade levels had demonstrated in
increase with a slight dip in with our fourth graders. Again, this is just highlighting the proficiency that we've had over time and the coherence that we have across grade levels in mathematics. This piece, again, back to kind of lumping all the grade levels together, we looked at grades 3 through 7 and comparing ourselves to both pre-COVID, during COVID, and after COVID. So looking at that trend over time, we wanted to make sure, I know that was feedback that we had from our board in previous years, to just kind of monitor that progress again at a 50,000 foot view. So pre-COVID, you can see where we were about 74% proficient in the area of ELA. We are outperforming both state and county averages and pretty substantially. During COVID, we saw a gradual decline. Again, the state and county really dipped as well, but the state more sharply than here in the Troy School District. We maintained kind of a 10-point average over the state throughout that period of time. Post-COVID, we're looking at a rebound that you see pretty consistently with our third graders now, and again, we see that as an overall trend 3 through 7, but really hoping that this is kind of a trend that we can sustain over time with our interventions. We can notice that our students are recovering at a faster rate than the state and county averages, so we're seeing some positive work and celebrations of areas to grow from. So again, we just wanted to highlight both in ELA and mathematics, those trends are continuing to. In math, we're actually exceeding what we had prior to COVID, and really wanted to highlight for the board and our community kind of where we were trend-wise.
To add one celebration in mathematics is we can also see that the state and the county declined going from 24 to 25. Well, when Troy actually saw improvement from 24 to 25, that's just an important to note because we often follow those county or state trends, and so when we are not following those trend lines, that's a nice celebration for us as well.
So another way to look at this data, again, that combined look at grades 3 through 7, the top portion of the graph is ELA, the bottom portion is math, and again, we're comparing ourselves across the county to benchmark ourselves. You see the areas highlighted are the areas that are the top districts. We want to make sure that we're continuing to raise our standards and to be competitive in the county, and wanted to highlight for the board and our community kind of where we situate that way.
This next slide looks at PSAT 8 and SAT 11. So 8th grade scores are important to us. It's the first time students take the PSAT, which is a new benchmark for our students. So they take the M-STEP 3 through 7, and then starting in 8th grade, they take the PSAT, and then from 8th grade through 11th grade, they're engaged with the PSAT SAT suite of assessments, which allow us to really measure that progress over time. I would echo many of Ms. Griefor's comments in looking at our subtle changes in both math and English from last year to this year when we look at our 8th grade performance scores and our 11th grade performance scores. So what you'll see in 8th grade is a slight decline and in 11th grade a slight incline in their performance. And really those numbers being as small as they are tell us that our program continues to hold strong for our students. Our achievement remains consistent for our aggregate. In mathematics, we go back to the format that we were looking at for the other one, where we're looking at that dash and then the bar. We can see in 8th grade actually an identical score year over year, and then in 11th grade a slight incline. Our proficiency over time, again, looking from pre-COVID to 2025, allows us to see that in 8th grade ELA, we are rebounding nicely, moving back toward that 87%, so 83.5% this year. And then 8th grade mathematics, that is an area where we have not yet reached where we were pre-COVID, but that is work that we are continuing to move forward with. Here's our 8th grade county comparison in PSAT. As Ms. Griefor mentioned earlier, it's important for us to remain aware of the school districts that surround us and benchmarking and learning from each other. So we're often in conversation with these school districts and learning about what interventions might be working for them, what programs they're trying. This is a conversation that we often have the opportunity to have with our colleagues around our schools. Here's our 11th grade proficiency over time, a celebration for us in looking at ELA. What's not represented on this chart is school year 18 and 17, the two previous to 19. We're actually right in the 70s, the high 70 level, and then we spiked into that 82% in 2019. That was kind of an outlier for us pre-COVID. And as we are looking at our rebound post-COVID, it's fairly strong in our 11th grade. I think this speaks volumes to the work that we're doing in our high school ELA program, as we've adopted a new 9th and 10th grade curriculum, and this year they're working on the 11th grade curriculum. And we'll talk more about that a little bit later in this presentation, but that's evident here as we look at that 5-year data over time. And then in mathematics, we continue to work toward our pre-COVID scores. Our gap in math remains persistent, and that's something that we'll talk about when we look at our gap analysis in just a few slides here. And here's our county comparison and SAT scores. So, across the district, we're at about 5th in ELA and 2nd in mathematics. And these are familiar colleagues to us when we look at those who are listed next to us in any given year by 1% or 2. We edge each other out back and forth.
This year, we've also wanted to ensure that we were including both science and social studies scores. So in science and in our state, we test in grades 5, 8, and 11. So you kind of see at a glance there, we took a small dip in 5th grade while we see growth in 8th and 11th. And in social studies, we're thrilled to see the improvements that we've made over time. But really, as we learn a bit more about our test, the inquiry-based approach questions have now been added to the end step, and those are included now in our score. So we're excited to see how our kids had fared with those incorporated.
So the next few slides we're going to dig into our gap analysis in ELA and mathematics. Historically, we have student groups that have struggled in proficiency on our state assessments. On these next couple slides, we are specifically going to be talking about students with disabilities and economically disadvantaged students. Our English language learner scores are not present on the next couple slides. We did have an opportunity to talk a little bit about our English language learners when we were at our workshop. The new formatted slides just don't contain that data.
We took another stab at the design of
a key piece of our work in the gap analysis and thinking about the work with our students who struggle is our commitment to multi-tiered systems of support, or MTSS. That is the structure that exists in all of our schools in our organization that look at different ways to meet students where they are and move them forward. We have worked very hard over the past 5 years in building coherence around the process K through 12. Knowing that our students transition through our buildings and their experiences are very different from elementary to high school. And wanting to ensure that our supports are in place so that all students, regardless of whether they fall into a specific student subgroup or not, have wraparound supports for them. So we are very thankful to this board for their continued commitment to supporting our structures for MTSS, for funding our professional learning communities and professional learning opportunities that allow us to access our most vulnerable learners and support them along the way. We're also incredibly proud of the work that we've been doing around universal supports, K through 12 in our organization, in ensuring that all students, regardless of what classroom you're in, are able to access certain levels of support. And that's an incredibly important part for us. As we move forward, an area of focus for us is continuing to move students into Tier 1 instruction. In the secondary structure, 6th grade through 12th grade, there are practices, historic practices of removing students from Tier 1 instruction into supplanted instruction, which is out of Tier 1 instruction, maybe into non-grade level instruction in English and math. We know that that is not a best practice for students, and in our work for multi-tiered systems of support, we're really focusing on ensuring that our Tier 1 instruction is available to all. So this first slide is a very colorful slide, and what we tried to do is capture all of the different elements of looking at our gap analysis. There are 8 slides that look just like this one, and so I will explain the first one. We can kind of look at what's present. I don't know that I will need to reiterate 8 times exactly what we're looking at. When you look at that screen, what you can see in one of those blocks is if we look at the subgroup to my left, which is the economically disadvantaged students in 3rd grade. What you'll see in those scores, working from the bottom up, The red bar, NP, stands for not proficient. So that is the percentage of students who are not proficient in the 3rd grade ELA MSTEP. If you look at the dashed bar there, 10.5% is the percentage of students who are economically disadvantaged. The percentage of students who are not economically disadvantaged who scored not proficient. 28% is the percentage of students who are economically disadvantaged who scored not proficient. And if you work your way up that list, it's not proficient, partially proficient, proficient, advanced, and then the standard for the passing or meeting standards is considered proficient or advanced. So the state couples together proficient and advanced as our percentage of students who have met benchmark. So in this scenario, 72.5% of our students who are not economically disadvantaged in 3rd grade were proficient or advanced, whereas only 43% of our students who were economically disadvantaged were proficient or advanced. So that large number that's there, 29.5%, is the gap, the performance gap of our students in economically disadvantaged. Across the way from that, where we see that big 45.4, this is the same chart for 3rd grade, but it represents students with disabilities. So 73% of students without disabilities in 3rd grade scored proficient or advanced in the ELA and MSTEP, whereas only 27.6% of our students with disabilities scored proficient or advanced, representing a performance gap of 45.4%. So this slide shows the earliest in elementary that we assess on MSTEP, 3rd grade, and then the last grade, 5th grade, before they transition out, so we can see the gap represented in those 2 slides. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, just kind of in the bigger picture, I know we represented this in a different form, but the bigger picture is that we don't want students to get lost kind of in the law of average. We want, in a high-performing place, students, we want to make sure we are demonstrating to our board and to our community that we are monitoring all students and the progress of all students over time. And so this is just kind of a bigger stab at making sure that our students are, again, we're monitoring that progress. It's easier to look at them in cohorts, but again, we just kind of wanted to share with you that as we measure that over time, we're looking to make sure that gap closes and our students are all progressing. So just kind of a different viewpoint of looking at what we did last time.
One of the questions that was asked at the workshop was, what is the N? How many kids are represented in these subgroups? So I can tell you that in 3rd grade, there are 87 students represented in our student group that is special education. And in economically disadvantaged, there's 121. And it's very similar for 5th grade. It's 82 students and 125. So fairly consistent in number between those slides that are there.
I think important to point out as well is our subgroups far outperform our state and county average. So just kind of a different view of looking at what we have here.
Just so I couldn't add any more numbers or colors to our slide. And I think one of the things that we talked about at the workshop that's important to name here is this is the first time that we've really put these sorts of charts together for public presentation in the commitment to the work that Ms. Grieford just talked about, which is naming our gaps, naming our areas of concern, and working to be able to improve upon those. And so we will continue to work on what that looks like. How can we make this visible to you through the process? So what's present here are gaps in mathematics. So the same, along one side we have our economically disadvantaged student group, and on the other side we have our students with disability student group. This is both 6th and 7th in MSTEP, because in middle school it just collects those 2 grades, so those are present here. Also, putting 6 and 7 on a slide these days was something I thought would be entertaining. But you can see the analysis, the gaps that are there for our students in both economically disadvantaged and students with disabilities. I'm going to click through because I think that actually the most important slide is the last couple slides, which can talk a little bit more holistically about what's present here. So I'm going to go too fast so we can see what's present. Again, 6th and 7th grade. And then this is 8th and 11th. So this is for ELA, 8 and 11, and mathematics, 8 and 11. So I thought that this slide here, this representation was an interesting one. This is just this year's snapshot of performance, so 2025 performance of our special education students in each year. And what I found interesting about this is that we see persistent and consistent gaps throughout their students' time in the school district. This isn't a cohort, so we can't say it's one group of kids that didn't change. But to see that each one of our areas continues to measure, if we look at ELA in particular, we go from 45.4 to 53.1, and there's a variance all the way in between, but that's not a huge variance between those two numbers, right? Not even 10 points. We do see an incline in mathematics of that gap getting larger. So again, this is not an achievement, this is the gap. So the gap is getting larger over time from 3rd grade to 11th grade in mathematics. That makes some sense to me in special education because I am aware of how our curriculum deviates from Tier 1 as we hit our higher grades. And so for students to become further away from grade level expectations in that secondary realm is something that I understand. It's also an area that we have targeted in the last 3 years on changing that process. So as we work to continue to measure the outcome of those changes, this will be an interesting way for us to look at that performance over time. The next slide does the same for economically disadvantaged student group. So I think a success here, and what I find interesting and also successful here is when we look at our student performance as we move into 8th grade and 11th grade, we see that our economically disadvantaged students, the gap between our economically disadvantaged students and our non-economically disadvantaged students is smaller in 8th grade than it is in any of the grades before. I think that's a great testament to the work that goes on from kindergarten through 8th grade to move students to a proficient and advanced level. We see that spike go up a little bit in 11th grade. But again, that's something that we'll continue to work on. And again, we see mathematics significantly incline from 3rd grade through 11th grade. And so that's an area of awareness for us, something we need to really dig into a little bit more.
As far as the analysis and looking at these groups, I think there's some things, strengths to build upon, and then also some focus areas for improvement, as we've mentioned sort of throughout. So one thing that sticks out is we far consistently outperform our state and county averages with our subgroups, just indicating some of the practices that we have instructionally are strong and consistent over our system. We have, again, that stability again in all of the areas. I know we didn't mention the EL program, but I think it is important to mention how in mathematics, for instance, there's areas where our students in the EL category are outperforming their peers by nearly triple the amount. So I think that's an incredible celebration. One of the areas that we consistently are challenged with, and our most persistent area, is the area of special education. So we continue to offer and look for ways to offer that access, as Christine had mentioned, to our students in terms of those targeted intervention supports.
The next few slides will allow us to reflect and learn a little bit more about middle school math. This slide specifically looks at student performance for the current class of the current 9th grade class, which is the class of 2029. This is their performance last spring, as 8th graders on the PSAT 8. This is this cohort is the last cohort of students to have the 6, 7, 7, 8 track. But then the students who weren't in that track are the first cohort of students to have the IM 6, 7, and then honors algebra 1 option. So it's a little bit of a messy cohort, this class of 2029 for data purposes. But when we look at this data specifically, some of the successes that we see are the movement from 7th to 8th grade from partially proficient, from not proficient to partially proficient. So we can see in the red representing not proficient in 7th grade at 16%. Those students moved from that 16% to the partially proficient and tested in that area during their 8th grade year. Again, this is cohort data, so tracking the same group of kids. What we can also see is consistency in their performance over time. So we saw a growth from 5th to 6th grade in their proficiency levels. That would have been when our students were introduced to the new IM6, but also half of the class doing the 6-7. So over time, what we see is that our students continue to achieve at levels that they had in the past. This slide shows the current 8th grade class. So they took the M-Step 7 last spring. This is our first cohort of students that has gone straight through with IM6, IM7, and then an opportunity to select either Honors Algebra 1 or IM8. So those students are they're in 8th grade right now. Their last assessment was 7th grade. A celebration here for us is, again, the student growth from 5th grade to 6th grade. When we look at that blue bar growing in proficient or advanced, what we see is consistent scores from 6th to 7th grade. So really no movement at all between that 6th and 7th grade score for our students. So consistent performance. One of the questions, again, when we started talking about why do we use or what might state level data tell us, it helps us to look at the performance of our programs. So when we are looking at our curricular selections, our curricular programs serving our students well, this state level data is a first indicator for us. It's not the sum total, but it is a first indicator for us on whether or not we are meeting the standards that existed before or didn't. So at the minimum, I think what we are seeing here is our students are continuing to achieve at a level in which they had in the past. So that's good indication for us. What we want to see is continued growth in a positive direction. This slide here talks about and shows the percentage of middle school students who are enrolled in honors high school level math. So when you look at this chart, what you'll see if you look at the black line on the top is student enrollment in honors algebra 1 over the last 5 years. The 2021-2022 school year, 13% of our 6th through 8th graders were enrolled in Honors Algebra 1. That continued at about 12.5% of our students for 3 years. And then we had a spike to 19.8% of our students in Honors Algebra 1 in the 24-25 school year. That is the first year that we allowed choice. So students were no longer required to take 6, 7, 7, 8 in order to access Honors Algebra 1. Any child was allowed to access Honors Algebra 1 upon the conclusion of either, last year it was at the end of either 6-7 or IM7. So we saw a significant increase and then a little bit of a dip going into this year. But that dip can be explained by looking just below where you can see our enrollment in Honors Geometry and Honors Algebra 2. So we had a larger percentage of students this year who were enrolled in 6th through 8th grade who took Honors Algebra 2 or Honors Geometry. So those are the double advanced students or triple advanced students, depending on where they took their assessments to move up. Indicated on the side of that chart, which I think is an important piece of information, is our middle school honors math enrollments have grown from 16% of our students to 22% of our students now being enrolled in honors high school math. So a growth of over 6% over the last 5 years. And I think it's always important to put that student, I like to put the lens of thinking about how many kids is that, what does that represent? That represents an additional 175 middle school students last year who took an honors high school math course and an additional 175 students this year who took an honors high school math course. So serving 350 more students than we have historically is a pretty significant impact. So we will continue to watch and study our student performance in mathematics, but that's kind of the update of where we are right now with our enrollment.
A few things to just point out and be able to celebrate. I know our WAS team was here earlier. We have presented a lot of numbers and slides, but we know this is the work of many hands of the people in our organization and our students and our families as well. So that connectivity is not lost on us, and we appreciate their work. I just wanted to highlight a few things over time that stood out to us. So first, third grade reading, we have our ELA first in the county, and so that's exciting for us to see. While we're about 68%, it's important to note that we have grown about 4% over time, and it's exciting to see where we're situated in that way. Again, we're not content with that number, but just wanted to kind of give the third grade team a shout out over the district to see where we were that way. In addition, our third graders in math, exciting to see that they had about a 5% growth from where we were last year, and so excited to see a lot of our programs that are new in our district. A lot of folks have been working really hard to learn on behalf of our students. Our students have been working hard, and it's exciting to see that work pay off for our teams. And there we are again, growing.
An area that we thought would be important to highlight is our work around the Seal of Biliteracy. Our students in the Troy School District, and Ms. Griefor referred to earlier in thinking about even our students who are English learners, we celebrate a lot of different languages in our school district, and the Seal of Biliteracy is a wonderful way to honor the languages that are in our homes, the language studies that our students take on in our schools on the weekends. And so the Seal of Biliteracy allows students to be recognized for their level of fluency in a language. There's a process that's established by the state, and we support it in the school district. We are currently the fourth highest number of students with a Seal of Biliteracy in the state. And we're going to continue to move forward with that work. And we're grateful to Kara Beal and Sherry Paulus, who have taken on that work this year and are going to continue to move that forward. One of the areas of success and celebration for us in the Troy School District is our AP enrollment. We made a very conscious decision in 2020 to reevaluate how we enroll students in AP level courses. Our students previously had to have teacher approval, signatures on their course scheduling guides. They also had to have a specific grade in a previous class in order to be able to access those AP courses. During the pandemic, students were not in seat, and so getting teacher signatures was not easy, and so we removed that barrier because it made sense at that moment, and then decided that that was something we didn't need to go back to. We were concerned, or there were concerns that were shared at the time, that without those prerequisites or without those requirements put in place, that our students would not perform as well, and that we would have students in our AP classes who didn't belong there. I think that it's a huge celebration for us to say not only over the last 4 years have we seen consistent increases in our student enrollment in AP enrollment, but we have also seen it in our AP scores. Our students have been, and what's represented in that last slide is 53% of our high school students are currently taking a AP course. So that's 53% of all high school students. That's not just juniors and seniors. That includes 9 through 12 at Troy High Athens and Troy College and Career High School. And so when we look at our student achievement, it makes it even that much more impressive. So this chart that's here is telling us that 89% of our students are earning a 3 or higher on 1 or more of their AP exams. So the reason that we use 3 as a threshold is because 3 is the number at which colleges begin to consider whether that is credit that they can use toward graduation at those colleges and universities. Specifically, we've been monitoring our enrollment in AP English 11. We have implemented our new English 9 and English 10 courses at Troy High School and Athens High School. Those courses were designed in order to create a platform for all students to jump from in 11th grade, to make the choice to go into AP English without any barriers, or to take a non-AP English 11. What you can see here is the increase in enrollment, the 24-25 cohort of 41.5%. Those are the 11th graders who were in the Pilot 9 and the Pilot 10 classes. This year's cohort of 45.3%, that's the largest cohort we've had in Troy, represents the first cohort of juniors who have gone through the new 9th grade and the new 10th grade curriculum. Another one of the concerns about changing the structure of English at the high schools was that students would not be prepared to perform in our AP English 11 class. And last year's cohort, 89.5% of students earned a 3 or higher on that exam. That is just an incredibly high number, and I'm very proud of the work that is going on at the high schools, the teachers who are leading our students through this work and preparing them for these exams. I'm a little timid as showing you what scores might look like next year, because I can't imagine us exceeding 9.5%, because that is just outstanding. But we will be back again in a year to tell you what that looks like. So this slide here looks at our diploma acquisition at the International Academy East. We continue to move forward very strongly in that building. There's just an incredible staff there that has a really sound understanding of what a child needs to be prepared for that diploma acquisition and to go through that process. And so we report out annually on what that looks like specifically at IA East. And that is the end of our presentation for tonight.
Great.
Are there any questions?
Thank you. Any questions for Chris or Christine? I know we had an opportunity to really dig into this at our workshop, but do you like the new format of the charts?
Take a vote.
Yeah.
Pros and cons, right?
Yeah. Well, it was easy to see and easy to understand, so.
I do have one question.
Go ahead.
I know this is the first time we're doing the gap analysis between the different subgroups. I wondered if you had gone back to look at it and see how we are progressing in this gap, if we have made improvements, we're remaining about the same, kind of thing.
Sure. So the slides that we did show at the workshop allowed us to see slight progress in some areas and no progress in other areas. It's really a 2-year window that we've looked at so far, but this is work that we're going to continue to do as we look at the implementations of our multi-tiered systems of support.
Thank you.
Other questions?
We had so many last week.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it.
So we're going to invite Dr. Rector up to also share some work that is going on in terms of looking at a district performance dashboard that will be released on our website, which will again give the community a great view of a number of different, I think, important measures, for our school community.
As Dr. Recker's pulling that up, thank you, Dr. Philippart, and thank you, Dr. Recker, for being here to provide that information. For the sake of the community, the board had challenged the administration to put together data in a format that the community could have access to, and we willingly jumped into that. And with the work of many individuals led by Dr. Recker and working alongside of a third party, Qualtrics, they have worked really hard to bring this data dashboard to life. It is not 100% at this point, but we're really close, and we're really also looking we're interested in the community's feedback with the information that's there. Did we hit the mark? And we're open to whatever feedback might be provided as as I see it, as a living, organic document that will change as needs change, and as input is provided by either the board or the larger community. So with that, Dr. Recker, please.
Good evening, everyone. I know we had a chance to talk last week, but tonight I wanted to show the public our first attempt at the external community-facing data dashboard. As Dr. Macheski said, we anticipate that this will be a living website that changes over time as the data that we collect changes. Also, as our strategic plan evolves over time, the data that lives here for the sake of transparency for our community, we'd also be open to changing as well. At present day, we have the data dashboard. We're hoping that it goes live at the end of next week. This Thursday is our hopefully last check-in with Qualtrics to make edits based off of last week's workshop's feedback. So we're yet to make those changes, but by Thursday we hope that they'll make them in real time with our call with them, and to be able to show it end of next week to our public. It will live under the About TSD tab here, where we have other items such as the superintendent's welcome and the strategic plan, which I imagine many would toggle back and forth with to understand our goals and then where we stand data-wise. So when you get to the data dashboard, there'll first be a welcome and an orientation to the district's 4 pillars, a quick at-a-glance of who we are as a district in regards to languages spoken, enrollment, the number and types of schools we have. And from there, community members should be able to toggle among the pillars. The first being the green pillar, When they get to the green pillar, they'll see some of the beginning metrics that we've begun to tag as indicators of success or to be monitored for our early childhood to career, whether it's the percentage of high school kids in dual enrollment options, AP courses, CTE classes, AP testing trends, graduation rates, and international baccalaureate diplomas, as well as kindergartners that have preschool experience and from where. In the red pillar, the data that we've begun to initially collect are participation of high school athletics by sport, participation in the fine arts courses district-wide, our attendance rates. As we said last week, we think we could dig into this graph a ton, thinking about just what helps our kids get to school at the different levels. We also have a graph showing, and we've joked, and I'm not sure who the young lady is, I'm sure she's not chronically absent. The next to the absent graph here, we have kind of an inverted C that shows our chronically absent rates by grade level, as well as our suspension rates. Specifically, we've tracked students who've received a significant suspension of 3 or more days from a singular discipline incident. In the blue pillar category, it looks very similar to the presentation you've seen overnight. Here our community can see MSET performance, the percentage of kids who received proficient or advanced grades 3 through 7 from 23 to 25, the aggregate score. They can also see PSAT 8, 9, and 10, as well as our SAT. We'll have a WIDA measure, and then we have our proud moment there of the number of National Merit semifinalists. The gold pillar is the final category, and it is the one that we're doing the most work on Thursday. We're going to be showing the amount of teachers, the distributions of teachers with various degrees. A very braggable point, though, to know that 87% of our staff taking care of our kiddos have an advanced degree or more, which I personally found super impressive. We are able to track the amount of time teachers have worked within the Troy School District. We don't currently have a great way to track years of total service in public ed, and our average TSD teacher has 13.41 years in our district. And then we also just noted that the Teaching and Learning Department puts on in-district PD for our teachers, and last year our teachers completed and successfully uploaded to the state website, which is an arduous task for Angelica and Rhoda, over 40,000 hours. So we're going to continue to make some tweaks to make sure it's digestible for our community and some other formatting items. And we hope that by the end of next week, our community will be able to see this, to have a little look at our district. I know we had a lot of time to talk last week, but are there any other questions you have tonight?
Dr. Rucker, do you see putting something on the website to actually gather feedback directly on the website as people are perusing this?
That's a good point. I think that would probably be the best way to have some catcher there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, maybe there's a form or something they can
Because we
fill out.
have learned a lot in this process of how far we've evolved and recognize this is where we currently are, but there's definitely room for growth. So I think that'd be a good way to collect it.
Mm-hmm. Great.
Something else I thought of on the green pillar might be post-grad outcomes that you can get like from Power BI or something, where you like look and see how many of our kids went to college, graduated in 4 years, that sort of thing. That might be an interesting, something else to
we have that
play around with.
too.
Absolutely.
Good. Okay, anything else? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. All right, we are going to move on to business. So, Mr. Trudell, if you'd like to start out.
Good evening, Board. I'm going to introduce to you both of our partner and manager from Plante Moran. They're here with us tonight. Partner Chris Geck and manager Clinton Trudell. No direct relation, but we need somewhere. So they're going to go over the board presentation, and then I'll jump into the other agenda items after.
Great, thank you.
So,
Thanks for having us tonight. We're here and happy to present the results of the annual audit, which was required by all districts to be submitted to Michigan Department of Education by November 1st of each year. Our audits included several deliverables, the financial statements themselves, which we issued an unmodified opinion, which is the highest form of assurance. For federal programs this year, we tested the special education cluster. One caveat to that, we have not yet issued the single audit report, neither has any governmental entity within the entire nation, really. There's no compliance supplement yet that's been issued by the federal government. As you, I'm sure, are well aware, there's been lots of delays with the budget and other happenings at the federal level, and until that compliance supplement is issued, no auditor can yet issue their single audit report. So we've completed that testing to date, no findings, no issues with the special education cluster, just waiting for that document to get published so we can issue that report. We also test your bond and sinking fund expenditures for compliance in accordance with state law and bond ballot language. I'm happy to report no findings from a compliance standpoint. No violations with the Budgeting Act. The total expenditures came in under your budget in accordance with state law. And happy to report that the 2024 financial statements were submitted for the annual Certificate of Excellence with the Association of School Business Officials, and that financial report did receive that certificate this year. So congratulations to the business office and having a nice clean audit, receiving that certificate for 2024, and being prepared and having no findings with this year's audit.
Great.
With that, I'll hand it over to Quentin. He'll cover some of the details and highlights in the general fund, and happy to take any questions as we present.
Great. Thank you.
Okay. So this first slide is the results of the year at a 10,000-foot level for the two major funds of the district, so the general fund and the 2023 capital projects fund, and then all other non-major funds are combined into one. I know there's sometimes not full understanding of what we mean by major fund, so I'll just take a minute there. Major fund is a GASB definition, completely objective, mathematical. So based on the level of activity and balances in the general fund and the 2023 capital projects funds, they're defined as major funds, get their own columns for the governmental statements, and then all others did not meet that definition, so they're non-major funds. So that's all that means. So for the general fund for the year, 190.6 million of revenues came in and 193.6 million of expenditures went out. So that was a usage of the fund balance of that fund of 3.1 million, bringing it down to 33.7 million fund balance at year end. Just for a little bit of context there, the final budget was a usage of 3.8 million out of the general fund. So the 3.1 million usage that actually happened was, fairly in line with what that final budget was. Over to the 2023 capital projects fund, so 7.3 million of revenues came in. That's all exclusively investment earnings on the bond funds that are held in financial institutions. And then 57.9 million was spent on capital projects for the 2023 bond. That reduced that fund balance down to 127.4 million. Kind of different in how we look at these funds. So the general fund, naturally being the main operating fund of the district, we look at as a going forward basis with 33.7 million fund balance to fund future operations. With that 2023 bond fund, that one is really going to be spent until those funds are gone, and then the fund will disappear. The 33.7 million remaining fund balance for the general fund, we will spend a little bit of time in a few slides getting more into detail on kind of what that really represents. The rest of the slides that we have prepared really do focus on the general fund. I could spend a lot longer going into the rest of the funds for the full financial statements, but in the interest of time, we want to really just focus on the primary operating fund. So for the year, I mentioned general fund had 190.6 million of revenues. The largest source, about 66%, was from the state. 25% was from locally sourced funds like property taxes. 7% came from inter-district funds, so that's primarily the PA 18 fund, special education funding that comes from open schools. And then about 4 million or 2% was federal funding. Key takeaway here is that this breakout between the different sources of funds, highly consistent with what we've seen in previous years, with the one difference being in that federal fund slice. So that yellow slice of the pie, much smaller than the past 3-4 years. And that's really because that pandemic era funding was finally completely spent. So that 4 million or 2%, that's much more in line with what we would have seen for federal funding in pre-pandemic years and what you can expect to see going forward in future years. So this next slide, the total pie is the same as the previous one, 190.6 million in total revenues, but now it's zeroing in a little bit more on what that state foundation allowance really means. So the per pupil foundation allowance accounted for 44% of the general fund's total revenues. There is more to the state revenue. That would be the other categoricals, state grants, 147C funding. Now that's all represented here in that yellow pie, or yellow slice, along with everything else. And then the other thing I wanted to focus on is that blue slice, 43.6 million for property taxes, compared to 46.9 million of total local source revenue, just brings home that the property taxes is the vast majority, almost all of what that locally sourced revenue is.
Yeah, and just to highlight there too, so, you know, the 44% and the 23%, you know, so 67% of your revenue in the general fund is from the foundation allowance. So that's number of students multiplied by that annual foundation allowance, which we're going to look at on another slide. So, you know, a very significant source of the revenue in the general fund really is dictated by that.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, so now flipping over to the expenditure side. So this first slide on the expenditures shows that of the total 193.6 million expenditures, vast majority, 80%, was spent on salaries and benefits for employees, 15% on purchased services, 4% on supplies, and then 1% on other miscellaneous ones. Again, the common theme here going through all of these slides is that the breakouts for the pie are going to be highly consistent with prior years. That's what we would have expected. There was nothing that would suggest that we would see a big shift this year. The other key takeaway I have on this one is that 95% between salaries, benefits, purchased services, 95% of general fund expenditures is spent on people serving the district. Now this slide, similar to the couple of slides we have on revenue, this second slide on expenditures has the same total as the previous slide, but instead of looking at it by object, so salaries, benefits, supplies, this one is now broken out by function. How I like to think about that is the object is what the dollars were spent on. The function on this slide is why those dollars were spent. So between direct and indirect instruction, roughly 80% of the general fund expenditures were for instruction. On that direct piece, 64.5%, that is higher than the average Oakland County for districts across the county, which were about 58% on direct instruction. Again, common theme is this breakout is very consistent with prior years. So now we have a slide on the pupil or the total enrollment for the district over the past 6 years, as well as for the current year you're in, and then also stacked against the state foundation, the state piece of the foundation allowance over that same time frame. So the general theme is modest decline in enrollment in each year, including for fiscal year 26, offset by increasing the foundation allowance for each year, except last year, the year under audit, there was no increase to the foundation allowance. The good news is for fiscal year 26, there was a $442 per pupil increase to that foundation allowance.
Yeah, and that enrollment trend would be consistent with what we see at districts across the state, and I think nationally too, with just overall and more aging population across the nation and in many nations, frankly, across the world, and specifically again in Michigan, we do see that trend in the student count being kind of a steady decline over the years. More specifically noted too, during that first year of the pandemic, there was, I think statewide, about 50,000 students that left public education that still have not totally returned back since that big fall off when the pandemic first started. So again, kind of consistent trends that we see from district to district.
Okay, so now last slide that I've got on the foundation allowance. So this just shows where Troy lands with other Oakland County districts and how that foundation allowance per pupil ended for the year that was under audit. So this is not every Oakland County district, but this is every Oakland County district that is a hold harmless district. So those that are allowed to levy in excess of that baseline 9608 per pupil. So this just shows that for all of the hold harmless districts in the county, Troy is about middle of the pack in what they're allowed to levy plus the state portion of the foundation allowance. So I mentioned we'd talk a little bit more about the fund balance for the general fund, so I'll give it back to Chris to take us home.
Yeah, last slide here on some of the results over the years for the total fund balance is what we're looking at on this slide. So this is the ending fund balance in the general fund only the last 10 years, so going back fiscal year 2026 through fiscal year 2025, the year of the audit. Again, total fund balance at June 30 of 2025, just over $33.7 million. A common measure of the health of overall fund balance in a general fund is looking at that amount as a percentage of your general fund expenditures. That ratio for fiscal 2025 was 17.41%. To compare it to some metrics, some statewide organizations would recommend, at least 15 to 20% maintenance of fund balance as a percent of expenditures to have enough cash on hand for operating expenditures, especially that school districts do not receive state aid payments during the month of September. So it's important to have fund balance on hand to cover those bills, the payroll, so the district does not have to borrow and incur additional debt service expenditures. So 17.41% would be right within that recommended range. Another ratio, or data point rather, the statewide average fund balance for all general funds for June 30 of 2024, it's the last year that the current data has been compiled for, is 24.7% as the statewide average for all general funds from last year. So you can see, over the years here, the district's done a good job at maintaining a pretty steady proportion of the general fund balance as a percentage of their expenditures.
All right.
With that, happy to take any questions.
Questions from any of the board members? I have one question. So that I was actually quite surprised when I saw that 24.7. That is kind of, would you say that was artificially high because of the funds from the pandemic, and that your expectation is that will dramatically go down as a statewide average because people will spend that one-time cash?
Absolutely. I had looked it up for another presentation, and the statewide average, I think it was 2015, was 15%. So it's actually, I take that back. I think that was even 2020. So the statewide average has risen significantly. A lot of it is because of that one-time ESSER pandemic funding that was very flexible in terms of how those dollars could be spent. So, we've seen over the last 3-4 years that statewide average has definitely ticked up. We're already seeing, districts that have dipped into fund balance in fiscal 2025. I predict that number probably goes down once that data is published for fiscal 2025. And I've seen most districts I work with are projecting to use fund balance to balance their budget for fiscal 2026 as well. So, yeah, I do think that statewide average is going to come back down to more, I'll call it a normal proportion, now that the effects of that one-time pandemic funding have been exhausted.
Okay. Other questions? I have one last question, and that is, typically in the past, we would see a chart that looked at the increases of the foundation allowance vis-a-vis inflation. I didn't see that this year, but can you comment on that? I mean, given where foundation allowances have been, say, over the last decade and the rate of inflation, we're still more behind than we're at, right?
Not kept pace over the years as you look at the foundation allowance increases, as a percentage. You think about the cost of, we looked at that slide that had the percentage of your total salaries and benefits. And again, benefits includes healthcare benefits, the MIPSERS contribution, which is the state-run retirement program that all school districts participate in. MIPSERS alone, there's been years where you have a 10% increase alone just in your MIPSERS contribution rate. Not to say healthcare premiums as well. The last couple of years, those have significantly increased. So, to your point, the rate of increase on a percentage basis of the foundation allowance has not kept pace with expenditures year over year.
Yeah. So, and I just really want to make the point, to the public that, the foundation allowance increase this year might seem big, but when you kind of track it over time, we were better off in 2010 than we are today.
It's a little misleading too, so it was a $442 increase this year, but one thing that happened too with the budget this year was the removal of the 147A1 funding, which is tied to retirement, but it's unrestricted in terms of how you can spend it. So I think that shakes out close to $85 to $90 per student for Troy specifically. So that does kind of eat into your 442 increase. So it's not quite all that it seems on paper.
Yeah, great. All right, well, this is the chart. Yeah, this is the chart yep.
So this one was included in our fall update, so as we speak to different staff groups and PTA groups, we kind of go over this. So you'll see on that far right column there, that's our actual foundation for this year, and then that yellow line is the inflationary adjusted since 2006. So.
Yeah, another bad gap.
It's about $51 million.
I was going to do the math really quick, yeah, so it's important to know that we're, today in 25, 26, we're operating essentially in a $50 million gap compared to 2006, 2007.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's an important
With
chart.
respect to the pandemic funding too, a lot of the funding was awarded based on need. So as your free and reduced numbers were higher, you got more dollars. So districts like Troy or Rochester, Birmingham, Bloomfield, relative to the student need, we didn't get as much money. So when you look at the amount that was awarded to districts that were higher need, based on economic factors, the dollar amount they received was significantly higher to their overall budgets too. So that's where you see their.
That's where you see that fund balance number high. Great. Anything else? Well, thank you. That was a very good, good audit, but a very clear presentation. So thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
So Dan, do you want me to read, to recommend, or are you going to recommend the adoption of the,
Yep.
pardon me?
So for your consideration then is to, the administration recommends that the Board of Education accept the financial statements as presented by Plante Moran.
Okay. So we're being asked to accept the audit report as presented. May I have a resolution, please? Ms. N.A.?
Be it therefore resolved that the Board of Education accept and approve the Troy School District's audited 2025 financial statements as presented by Plante Moran.
Support.
We have a resolution by Ms. N.A., supported by Ms. Alish. Comments or discussion on this? Okay, all in favor of accepting the resolution, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes, opposed, say no. Thank you, motion carries. All right, we'll move on to our next item of business.
So next item for consideration is the Series 2 Bond Authorization Resolution. So in your board packets, we did include the full legal document, which has a few more words than the resolution does. So we tried to consolidate that down for your purposes tonight. So to summarize what that resolution says, it's the $555 million bond issue that voters approved in November of 2022. We issued the first series in May of 2023. So the district is at a point where we are looking now to issue the second series of 3 total series. So this package of bonds that we're looking to issue, pending your approval, is going to be split into 2 parts this time. Number 1 is related to the $555 million bond program. So we're looking to issue $193 million as part of that bond vote. And then we're also going to include what we call refunding bonds for some 2016 bonds that we have, totaling $27 million. So both are not to exceed numbers right now. So that $27 million is essentially going to refinance some older debt that are coming on their 10-year mark right now, and that's going to lower the interest rate from about 4.5% down to hopefully just under 3%. So by coupling it with the larger $193 million, you just have more toys to hand out to the market, I guess you could say. So combining those in total, it's not to exceed $220 million for this issuance. And we're targeting sometime between March and May of 2026 for this issuance.
Great. So we're being asked to consider a resolution for the issuance of our Series 2 bond authorization. May I have a resolution, please? Ms. Sendler?
Therefore, it be resolved that the Board of Education of the Troy School District does hereby authorize the issuance of bonds designated the 2026 school building and site refunding bonds in an amount not to exceed $220 million, and that the attached resolution in its entirety be made a part of the official minutes of the November 18, 2025 regular meeting.
Support.
We have a resolution by Ms. Sendler, supported by Mr. Hopp. Any discussion on this? We all got an education on how this works, so. Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of the resolution, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes, opposed, say no. Thank you, motion carries.
Next item, D, for your consideration, relates to an iPad purchase. So as we talked at the board workshop, this purchase would be for 1,000 new 11th gen iPads and cases. So these will be distributed to our 7th graders across the entire district. The goal is, pending your approval, we will get these ordered, and hopefully in about January, depending on when they come in, those devices will come in, they'll get provisioned, and then distributed to the buildings for 7th graders to get their iPads. Doing it about 6 months early this year, just in light of some issues on the support end of it with respect to the software, and then storage issues. We want to make sure that there's no disruptions to the teaching and learning process. So this total purchase will be for $433,950, and that's paid for by the Capital Project Fund.
Okay, thank you. We're being asked to consider a resolution for the purchase of iPads. May I have a resolution, please? Mr. Hopp?
Be it therefore resolved that the district purchase iPads and cases from Apple in the amount of $433,950, and that this amount be approved as an expenditure of the Capital Project Fund.
Support.
We have a resolution by Mr. Hopp, supported by Ms. Anne. Any discussion on this? Okay, all those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes, opposed, say no. Thank you. Resolution passes. Okay, security and technology.
So item E, for your consideration, relates to a security and technology system bid. So this was a rebid from the package that was approved back in October. We had to refine the scope a little bit more. We tested the market to see kind of what vendors would recommend for certain solutions, and then once we narrowed it down, we wanted to rebid it accordingly to make sure we're getting the exact system that we want. So this will relate to all the specialty areas over at the new Smith Middle School, and then it will also provide for the boardroom technology as well over at the central office building. So think of spaces, larger spaces like your gyms, your common areas, cafeterias, things like that. So the total bid, this was the lowest qualified bidder. Total bid was $384,610.17, and this would be paid for by the Capital Projects Fund.
Great, thank you. So we're being asked to consider a resolution for the purchase of security and technology systems for the new Smith Middle School and the admin building. May I have a resolution, please? Ms. Alish?
Be it therefore resolved that the bid for technology systems be awarded to TEL Systems, Inc. in the amount of $384,610.17, and that this amount be approved as an expenditure of the 2023 Capital Projects Fund.
We have a resolution by Ms. Alish, supported by Ms. Potts. Any discussion on this? Okay, all those in favor of the resolution, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes, opposed, say no. Thank you, motion carries. Traffic improvement.
So item F for your consideration relates to the new traffic signal that will be installed pending your approval over at the new Smith Middle School. This traffic signal will be right off Florence Drive, directly across the street from the new entranceway that's been under progress right now. So Road Commission's working on this. The goal is to start the work in the spring with the intent that it'll be ready to go for the start of the fall of 2026 school year. So this was awarded to the lowest qualified bidder, totaling $494,694. Tentatively funded by the Capital Projects Fund, but we were awarded as part of this last state budget a $421,000 enhancement grant through the state of Michigan that will be used to offset this cost. So that'll essentially put some money back into the bond program for other projects across the district.
Okay, great. So we're being asked to consider a resolution for the purchase of a traffic improvement system. May I have a resolution, please? Ms. Potts?
Be it therefore resolved that the bid for the traffic signal and infrastructure be awarded to J. Rank Electric in the amount of $494,694, and that this amount be approved as an expenditure of the 2023 Capital Projects Fund.
Support.
We have a resolution by Ms. Potts, supported by Ms. Anne. Any discussion on this? Go ahead.
I do have a question. Like you said, this was tentatively being paid for by the state, part of the state budget, and now we are approving this amount. Could you help the audience understand how does that work and how does the funds come
So the money allocated for this project was budgeted as part of our bond program. So the dollars are earmarked in the bond program for this. Sometime last year, Dr. Macheski received an email from one of our local reps from the state of Michigan who gave us the opportunity to apply for what they call state enhancement grants. That's a program where there's about $20 million allocated for local legislators to work with their local communities to try to help them out with some type of project locally that would provide a public benefit. So through that process, we applied for this traffic signal and signified that we believed it was a public benefit, just given the safety factor of getting people safely across Livernois Road, allowing easier access in and out of that campus area, also allowing for a second entrance and exit from that campus for emergency vehicles and traffic. And so after submitting that application, they did award us, it was back in June, we got the notification that that would be submitted as part of the state budget. And then with the state adopting and signing finally the budget in the first week of October, it was included as part of that. So we haven't received any money yet. That's why we're putting it as funded through the Capital Projects Fund for now, barring any unforeseen circumstance with not getting that money. But we were approved for it, so it's just a matter of waiting for it to come in. So
I guess my question is more, so this amount is allocated for this, and since it's not potentially not going to be spent, it goes back into the Smith Middle School.
yeah, currently it's
improvements?
part of
How
that
does that
overall
work?
budget. So when that school is finalized and released to the Smith community, then any dollars unspent from that total project then just get pushed back into other projects across the district. So
Okay.
we have like an unallocated line item that we essentially take these savings from projects and put it into there, and then we repurpose it.
Got it. Thank you.
So Dan, a question, I mean, since we're buying this, are we responsible for the maintenance of it?
Yeah.
So we're going to be in
We
the
pay the road
maintaining?
commission to maintain it,
Oh,
essentially.
okay. We're just writing the check. We're not,
Yeah.
okay. I didn't think we wanted to be in the traffic
it's
light
like-
maintenance
I
business.
want to say $2,500 a year.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah.
So it's actually owned by the school then?
So the
The
road
traffic
commission
signal?
is responsible for Livernois Road. They're basically just granting us access to install this equipment on their property, more or less. So
But
Okay,
we
so
own-
it is our
It's our
equipment.
light,
it's our equipment, but on their property,
yeah.
Okay.
if that makes sense.
And then we have to pay them to maintain it. Okay,
Because they're certified and they want it maintained a certain way, so.
okay, interesting. Okay, any further discussion on this? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of the resolution, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes, opposed, say no. Okay, we just bought a traffic light.
So item G, the final item under business for your consideration, relates to ELD materials. This was presented at the October workshop. I know you guys all had various meetings to learn more about this in depth. So this is through Language Power. It is a combination purchase where of the $104,000, just over $82,000 will be funded through Title III. And then the balance of just over $20,000 would be funded by the general fund.
Okay, thank you. We're being asked to consider a resolution to purchase ELD materials. May I have a resolution, please? Ms. Alish?
Be it therefore resolved that the district purchase Language Power ELD curriculum materials in the amount of $104,509.12, and that this amount be approved as an expenditure of the general funds, of which $82,681.38 will be funded through Title III.
Support.
We have a resolution by Ms. Alish, supported by Ms. Potts. Comments or discussion on this?
I do just want to ask a couple of questions, and I think somebody may have brought it up somewhere else. Why this is under business as opposed to curriculum?
I positioned it under business because we were strictly for the purchase purpose, since the Teaching and Learning Department already had an opportunity to meet with the board and answer specific questions. It just made sense, since we're asking for authorization of the purchase itself, to situate it under business. It would normally be situated under a curriculum.
And then I do want to, Mr. Trudell alluded to that, but we did all have an opportunity to meet and review the materials that are going to be bought. So we were actually able to open the learning kits and to see what the materials look like, as well as ask questions about some, compliance things with the state in terms of ELD. So I think we all definitely had an opportunity to ask all of our questions and interact with the material as well.
Okay. Stephanie?
I just want to give some feedback to Ms. Paulus and her team to say thank you for the opportunity to learn about the materials and to learn about the progress that the department as a whole is making for this really important student group in our district, since so many of our students are either actively acquiring English now or what we consider FLEP or formerly limited English students, and certainly we see that as part of our group of kids who are getting their Seals of Biliteracy too, so you can see that data all the way through our organization. I know Shari and her team are going to continue from here on to work hard to be really transparent to the whole community that they serve as they continue to develop, implement curriculum and professional development around it. So I appreciated that first step at it from your team at our presentation, and I hope to see it for the whole community as we move forward. So thanks.
Great, thank you. Ms. Ann?
I do want small clarification though. So what we are approving here is the new curriculum and purchase of the curriculum, right? So it's, as a board, we are approving the new curriculum implicitly with this purchase.
No, really, I think all you're approving is the supplemental materials. Because the curriculum is the Tier 1 curriculum that's taught in the classroom. These are really more supplementary materials that help support Tier 1 instruction. So you're really, the purchase is for the materials themselves, for the
Okay, so the curriculum
resolution.
itself hasn't changed.
Correct. The curriculum for our ELD students is Tier 1 curriculum that they receive in the classroom. Correct. This is more of a supplement that goes along with and helps support their ability to more quickly achieve proficiency within that classroom instruction.
Okay, so we are approving the supplemental curriculum, not exactly the main one.
Correct, the materials, supplemental materials.
Supplemental materials, right.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, Dr.
I
Melton?
just wanted to thank Dr. Recker and Ms. Paulus for taking the time to put together that presentation. It was really helpful for me to have a better understanding of the workings of ELD, be able to look at the materials, and I think Chris is here too, but helping me understand how that particular set of materials would be incorporated and how it would be delivered to students as well. Because as a board member, I really want to make sure that we're making the best decisions for our students, and this really helped me understand that. So thank you again for taking the time to do that for us.
Great. Anything else? Okay, let's vote. All those in favor of the purchase of the supplemental ELD materials, please say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Opposed, say no. Okay, thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you.
So thank you, Mr. Trudell. Okay, that concludes business. We have one public communication on non-agenda items. Mr. Cook, would you like to come up and address the board?
Oh, what happened here? Can you see it?
First, I'd just like to thank the administration for putting together the presentation and the data dashboard. That's really exciting to see, and thank you also to the board for the discussion at the workshop. I come to a lot of these, and that was really interesting this week. I'd like to bring your attention to something outside our district. which is right now the city is in the midst of redeveloping mostly vacant office buildings along Corporate Drive into 82 higher density, more affordable units. Although redevelopment for office buildings into mixed use and residential properties along Corporate is being considered by the Planning Commission, the City Council will consider plans in the near future at a City Council meeting for at least 2 more developments of mostly vacant properties in that stretch of Corporate. In my view, these multifamily residences are a fantastic step forward for our city and district. Because these multifamily homes will be more affordable than single-family homes, our new neighbors will potentially add to our economic diversity. Moreover, many will be families whose school-age children will help stabilize enrollment for the district. But while the district overall has excess capacity and is facing the prospect of declining enrollment overall, particularly at the K-5 level, that's not true at all our schools. In this specific case of Corporate Drive, it's currently in the Hamilton attendance area. By my calculations, Hamilton is around 50 students at capacity, within capacity, while Martell, the next closest school, has capacity for around 150 more students. One straightforward solution to the district to avoid overcrowding might be to rezone to include Corporate in Martell's attendance area. However, that solution requires intense interrogation to weigh the pros and cons of such an action. Therefore, I have 2 suggestions. First, TSD could reconvene the Attendance Area Review Committee to analyze the impact of these new residential developments, and if changes need to be made to the attendance areas, do so well before anyone purchases a home with the expectation that their child will attend a particular school. If the board were to wait until these homes along Corporate Drive are built and purchased to take action, this board will likely face intense fury from these new homeowners in the not-too-distant future if they're dissatisfied with their school assignment. I'd also call on the district to work more closely with the Planning Commission to provide feedback on future developments in terms of existing capacities at the district schools. Last week, I completed the Troy Community Academy, and I was surprised to learn from city staff about lack of regular engagement there is between city staff and the district. This is a missed opportunity to work together for the collective good of both city residences and district's parents. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cook. All right, we are going to move into our other, and we will start with reports from our students. I think I will start at that end of the table tonight. So Chloe, would you like to tell us what's going on at TCCHS?
Good afternoon, Troy board members and attendees. I'm going to be honest, I have a bunch of activities I'm really excited to talk about, so I'm just going to get straight into it. Starting with just this morning, almost all of our staff and students attended the Michigan Career Quest Fair in Novi, which was beautifully organized for us students to get the chance to get as much hands-on information about engaging workplace opportunities, internships, job shadowings, as well as everything in between, from any and all the booths we chose. Next up, our building sub by day and rock star by night, Mr. Vanderson took all of the music club as well as other interested students to Ray Don Studios to learn about how to make professional music. They really, sorry, I have so much on this page, I'm trying to, anyways, basically just teach them how to record music, and a lot of other tips and tricks that they can take home to their instruments. Next, can you guess what I'm about to talk about next? You guessed it, another field trip, and I mean, the career thing is in our name, you know? Our medically interested students, plus Ms. Clippard, took a trip to Corwell Health to focus on all the different paths and fields available to them in the medical world by participating in multiple hands-on stations and listening to medical professionals give them crucial inside details in their fields. And an honorable mention they would probably like me to mention and to add on in here is they are totally pros in drawing blood and giving CPR now. Following up with my announcement of our Halloween movie day / potluck / fundraiser held by our student council, which was a humongous hit. We made flyers and 1 million announcements throughout the whole month of October and ended up getting the whole school together in our LGI to eat pastas, salads, potatoes, soups, pastas, dips, popcorns, charcuterie boards, cookies, candies, cupcakes, pies, juices, and all kinds of sodas and drinks. All while watching a totally terrifying movie called Insidious. Being a student council member, I know myself as well as all my other members were so proud to make our goal of $255 with this fundraiser, which is a pretty significant amount given our school is pretty small. while I'm talking about student council, I'd like to wrap up my report with the student leadership meeting a few of our student council members attended in Lansing, where attending students got to see a magic show while at the same time being enlightened on mental wellness, depression, and coping skills. In addition, we participated in team building and leadership activities with other students from all over the state of Michigan. Let's just say we really put the career in Troy College and Career this
Wow, thank you.
past month.
So how many students attended that leadership conference?
I think it's about 6, including myself.
Okay, excellent.
And I know there was students even that came from all the way up in the UP, so that was pretty cool to talk to them. Yeah.
Great.
I made a lot of friends.
Great,
So, yeah.
excellent, good. Hey, Young, what's happening at IA East?
Okay, good evening, everyone. So I hope everyone's having a great Tuesday, and I'm really excited to share some of the things that have been going on at IA East. So back in October, we had our Powder Puff game between the juniors and seniors, and after a really intense game, the seniors came out on top with a 26-6 victory. And
Wow.
even though the juniors did lose, it was a really fun time between the two grades on the field. And just last week on Wednesday and Friday, we had our first Red Cross blood drive of the school year, and it was a huge success. So thanks to all of the students and our staff, we collected 22 successful donations, which has the potential to save up to 66 lives. And we thank every volunteer, donor, student, and staff member who helped this meaningful event happen. And just last Saturday, our Science Olympiad team kicked off the season with an exciting start at the Hawk and Hornet Invitational at Athens High School. And this year, the competition hosted over 40 talented teams, including top teams from Ohio and Indiana participating as well. And despite the tough competition, our team placed top 10 across 9 events, including first place in engineering CAD, third place in robot tour, fourth place in remote sensing, and sixth place in anatomy and physiology. And it was an incredible performance for our first competition of the season, with many more to come. And our Model UN team also participated in Simuna with a record-breaking of 78 total delegates, representing our largest team to date at the biggest conference in Michigan's history, with more than 1,400 total delegates. And the conference brought students together to debate and collaborate on real-world global challenges, including climate change, global health access, and international security, where delegates work to negotiate solutions, write resolutions, and engage in meaningful diplomacy. And on the more art side of things, our drama club has been working very hard on their fall performance titled The Book of Will, which is a play that's set in 1623 after the death of Shakespeare. And they'll be bringing the story to life this weekend, so be sure to attend if you're interested. And that's all I have at IA East. Thank
Great.
you.
Great, thank you, Young. Lots going on at IA. And board, feel free if you have questions or comments.
Actually, when is that play?
It's this Friday and this Saturday. This week.
All right, good to know. Thank you.
Excellent. Sarah, we'll turn it over to you. What's going on at Athens?
Athens High School has had an incredibly productive and thrilling end to the fall with major successes across the board. On the academic and community front, we successfully launched our first Athens Family University, where 25 families attended to learn strategies for digital detox. We also introduced our new Student of the Month recognition program, honoring students in 3 categories: Best Overall Student, Best Art Student, and Best Student Athlete. Our extracurricular teams are also dominating. The Athens Theater Company delivered 3 fantastic performances of their fall production, The Brothers Grimm, and our Science Olympiad team successfully hosted the annual Hawk and Hornet tournament. Our HOSA chapter sent 124 students to regionals at Troy High, and an astounding 69 students qualified for states in April. Finally, a massive congratulations to all of our fall sports programs. Football, boys soccer, and volleyball all wrapped up their seasons with huge wins against Troy High. A victory that I am told means Troy High administrators will be doing lunch duty at Athens this week.
I like that.
In addition, numerous individual athletes from boys tennis, cross country, girls swim and dive, boys soccer, and football all earned regional and state accolades.
We are looking forward to the fall break next week to relax and recharge for the remainder of the semester. And remember, it's always a great day to be a Red Hawk.
Great, great. And I know many of us on the board had the opportunity to actually have, we went and visited some of the classrooms at Athens, and then actually had lunch with several of the Athens students, Sarah being one of those, at the Terrace Cafe. So that was a great experience for many of us. Okay, and Bella, bring us home. What's happening at Troy High? And of course, you get the last word, so now you can talk about what Troy High has done to Athens.
Good evening, everyone. The fall season at Troy High has shown a lot of energy, dedication, and strong commitment to excellence. To begin with our academic and leadership clubs, this weekend we took 90 underclassmen from our Model UN delegates, and they attended Samuna, which is the Southeast Michigan Model UN Association Conference, where they practiced debate skills, collaborated with students from across the region, and represented Troy High. Additionally, Model UN launched a brand new outreach called Falling into MUN. Nearly 100 middle school students from across the Troy School District joined us in Troy High on November 5th for a workshop introducing key debate and diplomacy skills, helping them explore opportunities available in high school, and hopefully building those Model UN skills before they enter the high school level. Shifting over to athletics, our fall sports teams have also had a very strong season. Boys hockey team opened their season with an impressive 6-1 victory over Stony Creek. In cross country, Audrey Hamilton and Asa Konwinski qualified for state finals, finishing their season with outstanding performances. Our boys soccer team won the district championship, ending their season strong as well. And finally, our boys tennis team earned the state championship, which is a tremendous accomplishment, and it reflects all the athletes' dedication and the depth of the program at Troy High. We're incredibly proud of all of our athletes, and we wish them the absolute best of luck. Moving from athletics to our career-focused programs, HOSA had an amazing month as well. They hosted the Region 9 competition on November 8th at Troy High School. The event brought together 396 HOSA members from across the region. Troy High students earned 114 medals, all placing in top 3, and 88 students qualified to advance to the HOSA State Leadership Conference in April. Events included mental health promotion, public health, medical innovation, and way more. We're also very proud of all their hard work and dedication. In addition to academic and competitive success, our student groups have been focused on service. Peer mediation is spreading warmth from November 1st through the 25th with their annual coat drive. So they're collecting new and very gently used winter jackets to keep our community warm this winter season. Continuing with service initiatives, Project LEAD held their annual can drive this month and partnered with student government to launch 75 cans for 75 years of Troy Colts. So first hour classes were encouraged to collect 75 cans or $75 in honor of Troy High's 75th anniversary. Together, students collected over $700 and cans combined. Turning to STEM, our robotics team has also had a very busy and productive year. On November 15th, they hosted the annual Shark Fest, which is one of the largest robotic events in the region, with over 1,500 attendees. It was split into 2 different categories. So there was an FLL Explore, which is kindergarten through 2nd grade. These are more hands-on activities, which were led by Troy High students. And then there's FLL Challenge, which is 3rd through 5th grade. There were 47 competing teams, and new this year we had participation from every Troy School District elementary school. Wow. Many teams have been preparing since August and are now looking towards a state championship. And the Troy High robotics team themselves are also gearing up for their own competition season this spring. We're excited to see what the rest of the year brings us, and we wish you all a very early and happy Thanksgiving.
Great, thank you. Lots going on at all of our schools. Yeah, continues to be quite impressive of everything that's going on. We're going to turn it over to other for the board, and so Ms. Zendler, you can start us off.
All right. First, I'm with you. Early happy Thanksgiving, and I think it's a restful, homework-free, project-free, long weekend for our students and our staff. So we hope everybody gets and takes that break. I even saw that there's a technology break suggested, so keep that going too. Second, to my fellow board members, I want to let you know that I put in front of you tonight the Troy Youth Assistance Annual Report. I wanted to give you some highlights, as that's a board I sit on now. It is my absolute pleasure to help Troy Youth Assistance in their mission toward prevention, helping keep kids out of our court systems and helping keep our families strong. So this year, the 24-25 year, 72 families were referred to Troy Youth Assistance. 42% of those kids, families were high school, 40% middle school, and not to be forgotten, 18% elementary school. Students, top reasons that students were referred to Troy Youth Assistance were school incorrigibility, intervention services, and truancy. So we're working as partners with the school district to make sure that we can help students avoid chronic absenteeism and hopefully increase student achievement. Troy Youth Assistance is proud to report that 7 court actions were diverted by their efforts this year, which keeps our kids on the track for excellence. By the numbers, and to sort of not respond to our community responder, I had my first opportunity to speak to the City Council last week on behalf of Troy Youth Assistance, where myself and the treasurer of Troy Youth Assistance and one of our administrators, Carrie Brennan, went to ask the City Council for increased funding. So it was my first chance to be there and meet them and start to build a relationship. Short story, they didn't increase our funding, but that's okay.
You can keep asking.
We can keep asking. They know we exist, and that we're kind of not going to go away, so that's good. Troy Youth Assistance is proud to report that they spent $3,448 supporting community and individual actions in addition to primary sponsorships like clubs and skill-building activities, to which they spent a little over $3,000, which provides scholarships to students who need or want to participate in the after-school classes or other clubs that their families may not otherwise be able to afford. Troy Youth Assistance has also been working hard at family education opportunities, and they have published a parenting podcast in the last year with 3 episodes. So lots going on with the Troy Youth Assistance group that is partially funded by our school district. We've recently even reached out to ask our PTOs to help support the Troy Youth Assistance work. And you'll see more about how we're going to continue to make an impact in prevention in our systems for our students. So,
Thank you for that good report, and thank you
happy
for
to participate and share.
connecting us, being our connection to the TYA.
Yes. Yep.
Great.
So thanks.
Ms. Potts.
I gotta follow that up with something. First, I just want to say congratulations to Was Elementary. Personally, I think Dr. Philippart and Miss Sunny should have been pushed to the side, and maybe Mr. Hop should have been in that picture. Since we're the only like Was wolves.
All you have to do is just push
the honorary.
All you have to do is be an officer next year.
Either that or hip check you on the way to not just pictures. But I'm always impressed. I'm always very overwhelmed at times at all the stuff that's going on in our district. I continue to be completely impressed with our ELD. Shout out to Mrs. Paulus and Dr. Recker. When I sat in that conference room in that presentation, I just was so moved, I think, by how intentional you were with choosing that language power. I saw a lot of myself and my parents in that, in that presentation. So I just want to commend you on that very engaging presentation, and I look forward to seeing the progress that our kids make. Recently, I went to to Traverse City. I was able to travel with some fellow board members to the Michigan School Board Conference up there, attended some classes, and I always feel like I come back with so many great ideas to bring to you, Rich, Dr. Macheski. Can't wait to have that conversation. I know you're looking forward to it. Other than that, I don't have a whole lot to report. Looking forward to going to the National Honor Society induction next Monday, where I've been asked to say some kind of speech. I don't know why I was chosen. I'm a little bit scared. So if anybody has any advice of what to say and whatever, I'd appreciate it.
I think we have a communications team. So
right? Communications? Okay, I'll be coming and talk to you.
Won a bunch of awards.
Other than that, happy Thanksgiving to everyone. I'll be at Corwell Health working that day as you're all stuffing yourselves and watching the Lions. So think of me while you're about to go in your food coma.
Thank you. Dr. Melton?
Yeah, I was able to attend the Traverse City Conference with several other board members as well.
I did want to comment on how I think it's very important that our board members do take these opportunities for learning, especially since we have a fairly newer board. You know, it sounds really exciting, like, ooh, they're going to Traverse City. I was in class for 15 hours, 9 of which were accounting, auditing, budgeting, capital planning. I'm like, I would never want to be Mr. Trudell. But that information was so helpful because when I got the, I don't know, like 130 pages of audit material, I actually knew what things meant and what I should look for and what's important. And so I just want to stress that while that is a cost to the district for board members to attend these, it is money well spent, as having an educated board is very important to having a high-functioning district. So I just wanted to express my gratitude, but also point out how important that is that we take those opportunities. I am super excited about all the awesome data we saw tonight. I think it was definitely the most extensive data presentation that I've seen. I appreciate all the time and effort that went into putting that together. You know, I look forward to hearing more about these programs. One of the areas that has been brought up was the achievement gap, and one thing I did want to point out was that work has been ongoing. It's just that this is the first time that it's been presented to the board and to the public, which I think is important because it's like you hear about goal setting, like when you have it yourself and it's internal, it's one thing, but when you put it out there for everyone else, it gives a little bit different level of significance and urgency. So I appreciate that because it's also kind of a little bit scary when you do that too. So thank you for doing that, and then also to the Teaching and Learning Department and Dr. Rucker, the data dashboard. I'm like super excited, looks awesome. I can only imagine how much work that's been, and poor Mr. Rucker between, let's see more ELD, let's get a data dashboard, oh, let's revise curriculum. I know we've been kind of heaping on you, and as a new person to teaching and learning, thank you for the time, because I know that you're having to really go above and beyond with the time you and your staff are putting in, and that hasn't gone unnoticed, so thank you.
Thank you. Mr.
So a lot has been said that I was going to say, so thank you to everybody. No. I know it was briefly mentioned, but some of the board members had the opportunity to go to Athens recently to take a peek into some of the classrooms, a math classroom and an ELA classroom. And I just want to reiterate how much I appreciate that, not being a teacher, not being in an educational setting all the time. It's very eye-opening to see, you know, the students actually working through the curriculum and with the teachers. So it's just, thank you for giving us the opportunity to do so. And I'm very excited for the Troy High one that's going to come in January or so. So thank you.
And Bemis is coming soon.
Oh, yeah.
I can't go, but.
Ms.
Alicia?
Like Thanksgiving dinner, we're going around. So I do want to go back to Troy Youth Assistance. I was the former treasurer, so it's an organization close to my heart. I will just add, if you go on troyyouthassistance.org, you can make a donation there. It used to be Troy Youth Assistance, in addition to being more fully funded by the city. At some point in the past, it was $35,000 a year. At this point, it's $15,000. So that is a significant cut. But also what used to happen, 10, 15 years ago is during that first week of school, parents would come in and there would be lots of packets, and they would go during curriculum night from table to table, and there would be one for Troy Youth Assistance, and parents would write checks. And so even that amount has gone from a significant amount of money to a very small one. So I would encourage everybody to go on troyyouthassistance.org and make a donation as well. reiterate everything everybody else has said. I also attended the conference and took lots of classes having to do with budgeting and audit reviews and things like that. I did want to talk about, last week I attended the Government Relations Committee for Oakland County School Board Association. So there's kind of two big ticket items that are out there. One is funding under 31AA, and this is where, in order for us to get this money for safety and security and mental health, the district, the language is quite vague, so, you know, not all of it is clear, but one of the things is that it would, if we accept this money, we would automatically have to allow the state to come in if there's any type of mass casualty event, which is not defined. In addition, the district would have to waive all of its attorney-client privileges. Again, we don't know what the extent of that is. Information came out today. So lawsuits were filed last week. The deadline for acceptance of that money was moved from the 16th of November to the 30th of November. And then today was moved to the 4th of December. So the hearings will take place and decisions for injunctive relief will take place those first 2-3 days of December. So we've been giving a little bit of a reprieve on that. The other thing that is moving through the legislature, and not sure how successful or unsuccessful it will be, there is a push for school board elections to be partisan, which would have all sorts of negative consequences. The same is not being asked of city council, so it's very much specifically directed at school boards. And I did receive the full package of that last Friday evening, and I will share it out with the rest of the board. There's some sample language to reach out to our legislatures. I've done that with my state rep. What I would encourage, other members of the board, especially those who are on the east side, to reach out to their state reps. So those are kind of the two big things that were covered at OSBA. And then this was also covered at MASB as well. These are kind of the two big topics. So that's where we are with those.
Are they asking boards to pass resolutions relative to that?
So at this point, we're not. We did vote at the meeting to make the issue a legislative priority, so that way Oakland County can advocate on behalf of it and lobby. So that was done. The ask at this point is for school board members
to reach out
to their legislators.
Great.
So those are not as fun as some of the other things. And then, I would just say, I hope everybody has a happy and safe Thanksgiving and get some rest so we can come back and work in December.
Great. Ms. Inning?
I do not have anything more to add than what they have already added. I just want to wish everybody a happy break and happy Thanksgiving. Hope you have a relaxing time with your family and not think about work for a few days, or think about school. Well rested and come back energized.
Yeah, that's it. Great. Dr. Macheski.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Elish, for mentioning that. I was going to give that 31AA update, but you did a great job with that. Congratulations to the WA staff that we had an opportunity to celebrate this evening, as well as the communications department, Kendra, and your department for the efforts that they put forth in getting out the good news and the important news across our school district. And lastly, to both Dan and RL and your department on another fine, clean audit. Appreciate all the efforts that your team puts in to make that happen and assure that we are on a sound fiscal footing on an annual basis across the school district. You can look for information. Ms. Zendler already kind of teased this one, but you can look for information on Friday in the weekly newsletter on Wellness Weekends. So that information will be coming out officially this Friday. So I'd encourage everyone to take a look for that information. The A shout out to our to the entire community that helped support the Troy Center for Transition, the Tina Hauser Food Pantry. A lot of information was sent out. We received a tremendous amount of donation as well as financial assistance, and we were even able then to support other food pantries in the community as a result of that. So thanks to everyone who provided that that support for families across our entire community. So I want to make sure we thank individuals, and Mr. Cook, who spoke earlier this evening, is a member of the coalition and helped provide support for that as well. So I want to thank Walter for that and the entire coalition team. A couple of announcements coming up, or let me just talk about some things that we were able to. We had our first CAP evening, our Career Accelerator program. Parent evening was this last Monday, so we have the CAP program for this year kicked off and ready to go. So we'll be soliciting applications, video applications from students that are interested. We'll be taking 100 students in this year's cohort, up almost 4 times from where we were when we first started the program, and over 50 businesses participating at this point as well. So I want to thank Kendra and Christine and Mike Monaco and everyone who's been involved with helping to support that program moving forward. Tomorrow, Wednesday, in this room at 5:30, we'll be continuing the conversation with Ms. Chantel Yancey. We'll be kicking off that conversation, so we're inviting community in to continue conversation around anxious generation and where that's going to take us next in terms of supporting students across, and one another across the school district. The Student Advisory Board has their basketball fundraiser this Friday. We'll be at Troy High School, 6 o'clock. So all those interested, you can pay at the door. But we welcome everyone to come out to that event at 6 o'clock. As was mentioned earlier, the Hawk and Hornet tournament that took place at Athens, I had an opportunity this past Saturday to walk through and see the Olympiads in action. The Science Olympiad tournament is not really a spectator sport necessarily, because a lot of the work takes place behind closed doors. There's a lot of quiet work, and then there's some active work that goes on. But this is the largest Science Olympiad tournament in the state of Michigan. So kudos to Eric Bergzazi at Athens, who works tirelessly to help pull that together. So I want to make sure Eric got a huge shout out for that. He's certainly well deserved. I want to also mention, last week we had a chance to acknowledge our 57 national merits. So we had a reception last week. The board, of course, had an opportunity to pass that resolution earlier this year, but we had a chance to celebrate those individuals, kicking off kind of recognition season for the school district. And lastly, I want to also mention I had a chance to see Brothers Grimm at Athens this weekend. Just another tremendous performance by the Athens Theater Department, Athens Theater Company. And as Athens was working on Brothers Grimm, were those 3 fine performances, the Troy High group is working on their next performance, and very shortly auditions will be held or are being held for Les Mis that will take place in the spring. So a lot of work going on. We heard some comments earlier or late last spring, I guess, going into the summer about the theater programs, and I can tell you that the Athens Theater program, that performance was excellent, and we are already working on transportation for those students that you might have heard students talking about how am I going to get from Athens to Troy High in order to participate. Christine has already worked with transportation to make sure that is available to students, so that information is going out to students so that they know that transportation will be available to them for both tryouts, auditions, and then the rehearsals and so forth moving forward later in the spring. So just wanted to update the board as to where we were with that. With that, I think that's about it. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. A lot of information this evening.
Wow. Well, I won't belabor things. I just have a couple items. First of all, I wanted to build on something that Dr. Melton said, and really to the community, you should be very, very proud of our 3 new board members who have jumped in with a lot of enthusiasm and with a lot of their time. In the kind of school board training system, you become an honor board when all of your board members have achieved a certain level of training. And it is very customary when we have new board members for a district to lose its honor board training for a period of time as the new board members come up to speed and get their training. We didn't miss a beat. We've stayed in honor board because our 3 board members really have taken this seriously, put in a lot of time and energy, and so I really just want to acknowledge that to the community because you guys have done an awesome job. Our prior board members did the same thing, so there is a history of this in Troy, but I think you guys took the record. I mean, you were fast and furious, so thank you. I know I appreciate that as the old person on the board, but I know our community does as well because we cannot govern effectively if we don't know what we're doing. And there are some nuances in school governance that the only way you will learn is if you are trained.
Nancy, maybe you can just even mention how it differs in Troy compared to other districts, because we are one of the few districts that requires the initial 9 series in the first year. Some districts don't require any trainings. I don't know if you just want to.
Yeah,
I think that's important because all of us invest a whole lot of time in taking.
I mean, it really has been a long-standing culture of this board to, really ask people as they are running, as they make the decision to run, to understand that there is an expectation that you do take advantage of, the training and again, try, and people have, obviously different abilities because of their life commitments, but to try to do that as soon as possible. And again, this new team of board members has really gone above and beyond, so thank you for that. Dr. Macheski mentioned the CAP program and kind of the student side. I'm going to mention the business side, and we really should be thankful to our Business Roundtable lead, Doug Teets, who is really taking the initiative with businesses in the community, but again, for our community members who are business owners or work at companies in the area, please consider sponsoring a student. It's an opportunity to really make a difference for them, and I think your organization will benefit from, having the enthusiasm and innovation of our students participating. One final note, so the Troy Foundation for Educational Excellence, we had, a meeting last night, and I am actually thrilled. We are now bringing students on the TFEE board, so I think you see a trend here for all these organizations. So they did take applications, and they got some representation. They'll be looking at inviting students from Troy High and Athens, but none from TCCHS or IA. So if you have an interest, the Troy Foundation is really an umbrella organization that supports all of the schools and teachers in the district. They offer grants. Many of you may have had an advantage of grants and maybe didn't even know they were funded by the TFEE, but the money that they earn, and by the way, even though we're going into winter, the golf outing has been set for June 9th, so anybody who's thinking ahead to summer, that is a big area of fundraising for them. But again, I would just put an ask for students, if you have an interest, this could be another great community way, for you to be engaged, or for students in your school to be engaged. So with that, if there is no further business, we will conclude our meeting tonight. Our next workshop will be a week later than you might normally see on the schedule. So it is December 9th. And then the following week, December 16th, will be our last meeting of the year. The workshop will take place here because you can see there's lots of construction trucks over at the administration building. So we will have both of our December meetings here. So with that, I hope everybody has a great holiday. Happy Thanksgiving, happy detox from technology and not thinking about work and school. And let's come back in December. There's a lot of great things happening, and we will close the year strong. So thank you, everyone, and good night.
Thank you.